Zane Keller woke up with his face pressed against a tavern table, the smell of stale beer soaking into his beard, and a sinking realization that he had done something catastrophically stupid the night before. His friends were already awake, grinning at him with the kind of malicious joy that only comes from witnessing someone make a truly legendary mistake. Marcus slapped a crumpled piece of parchment onto the table beside Zane's head, and the sound echoed through his skull like a church bell at dawn. "Morning, lover boy," Marcus said, his voice dripping with amusement. "Ready to go courting?" Zane groaned and pushed himself upright, squinting at the parchment. His own handwriting stared back at him, though it was considerably messier than usual. The words swam before his eyes as his headache pounded in rhythm with his heartbeat. He read the bet agreement 3 times before the full horror of what he had signed settled into his bones. In exchange for a single gold coin and the dubious honor of his companions, Zane Keller had agreed to court Grasha, the orc woman who lived in the old mill outside town, for no less than 1 full month. He had to present himself properly, bring gifts, and make a genuine effort at wooing her. If he failed to complete the month, he would owe each of his 3 friends 5 gold pieces and had to work their fields for the entire harvest season. "I was drunk," Zane said weakly. "Very drunk," agreed Thomas, another of his so-called friends. "You stood on this very table and declared that orcs probably had feelings too, and that anyone who was brave enough could win one over. You said, and I quote, that you could make any woman fall for your charms, human or otherwise." Zane dropped his head into his hands. He was a farmhand, 24 years old, with nothing to his name but a small cottage, 3 chickens, and apparently a complete lack of common sense when alcohol was involved. He had seen Grasha around town occasionally, always keeping to herself, always receiving suspicious glares from the other residents of Millbrook. She was tall, powerfully built, with green skin that seemed to glow in certain lights and small tusks that jutted up from her lower jaw. She wore practical clothes and kept her dark hair tied back in a severe braid, and now he had to court her. "This is insane," Zane muttered. "She will probably kill me." "Probably," Marcus agreed cheerfully. "But a bet is a bet, and you signed it, witnessed by half the tavern, no less. If you back out now, you will never live it down. Plus, you know, the 15 gold pieces you do not have." Zane did not have 15 gold pieces. He barely had 15 copper pieces most weeks. He stood up slowly, his body protesting every movement, and tried to think through the pounding in his skull. He needed a plan. He needed to figure out how to approach an orc woman who had every reason to slam the door in his face, or worse. First, he needed to clean himself up. He stumbled back to his cottage as the morning sun climbed higher in the sky, stripped off his ale-soaked clothes, and dunked his head in the water barrel outside. The cold shock helped clear some of the fog from his mind. He dressed in his least patched shirt and pants, ran a comb through his hair and beard, and stared at his reflection in the small, cloudy mirror hanging by his door. He looked like a man walking to his own execution. The old mill sat about a mile outside of Millbrook, beside a narrow creek that provided just enough water flow to turn the wheel when Grasha bothered to grind grain. Most people avoided her services, preferring to travel to the next town rather than do business with an orc. Zane had no idea how she survived out here, isolated and shunned. He walked slowly down the dirt road, trying to figure out what he was going to say. Everything that came to mind sounded ridiculous. "Hello, I am here because I lost a drunken bet, and now I have to court you. Greetings. I am an idiot who runs his mouth when he drinks too much. Good morning. Please do not break me in half." The mill came into view, and Zane's steps slowed even further. It was a solid structure, well-maintained despite its age. The wheel turned lazily in the creek, and he could see that the grounds around the building were tidy and organized. A small vegetable garden grew beside the mill, the plants healthy and well-tended. Chickens scratched in a fenced area nearby. It looked like someone's home. Someone who took pride in their space and worked hard to maintain it. Zane's guilt intensified. This was not just some abstract challenge his drunk self had agreed to. This was a real person, living her life, and he was about to intrude on it with his stupid bet. He almost turned around. He almost walked away and resigned himself to poverty and shame. But something stopped him. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the faint memory of what drunk Zane had said about orcs having feelings too. He walked up to the front door and knocked before he could change his mind. The door opened almost immediately, as if she had been watching him approach. Grasha stood in the doorway, and up close, she was even more imposing than Zane had remembered. She was easily 6 feet tall, with broad shoulders and muscular arms that suggested she did all the heavy mill work herself. Her green skin had a slight olive undertone, and her dark eyes studied him with an expression that was equal parts suspicious and resigned. "What do you want?" she asked. Her voice was deeper than a human woman's, with a slight rasp to it that was not unpleasant. Zane opened his mouth. Nothing came out. His prepared speeches had evaporated the moment she looked at him. Grasha's nose wrinkled slightly. "You smell like ale and regret." That broke through his paralysis. Zane let out a startled laugh that was half desperate. "That is accurate," he admitted. "Both the ale and the regret." She did not smile, but something flickered in her eyes. Not quite amusement, but maybe a hint of interest at his honesty. "So, what brings a drunk, regretful human to my door?" Zane took a deep breath. He could lie. He could make up some excuse about needing grain milled or asking for directions or any number of things. But looking at her, seeing the walls already in place around her because she knew exactly how humans treated her kind, he could not bring himself to add another layer of deception to her life. "I made a bet," he said quietly. "A stupid, drunken bet. My friends dared me to court you for a month, and I was drunk enough to agree. I signed a contract and everything. If I do not follow through, I owe them money I do not have." The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush stone. Grasha stared at him, her expression unreadable. Zane braced himself for the door to slam in his face, or possibly for her to drag him inside and throw him in the millstone. Instead, she laughed. It was not a kind laugh. It was bitter and sharp, with edges that could cut. "Let me understand this correctly," she said. "You got drunk, made a bet about courting the local monster, and now you are here to fulfill your obligation so you do not have to pay up. Is that about right?" "Yes," Zane said, because there was no point in denying it. "And you came to my door and told me this because lying to you seemed worse," Zane said. "You deserve to know why some idiot is about to start showing up at your door with flowers or whatever people do when they court someone. And because maybe you could help me figure out a way through this that does not make both our lives miserable for the next month." Grasha leaned against the doorframe, crossing her arms over her chest. "You want me to help you win a bet about courting me. That is what you are asking." When she put it that way, it sounded even worse. "I know how it sounds," Zane said, "but I am trying to be honest here. I do not want to harass you or waste your time with some fake courtship, but I also cannot afford to lose this bet. So I came to lay it all out and see if maybe we could come to some kind of arrangement." "An arrangement?" Grasha's tone was flat. "You could tell me to come by at certain times, times that would not disrupt your day," Zane suggested, the idea forming as he spoke. "I would bring you things you actually need, not stupid flowers. We could sit and talk so it looks like I am making an effort, but we would both know it is just to satisfy the bet. After a month, I walk away, you go back to your life, and everyone is fine. Except I would have spent a month being the subject of a joke, Grasha said. Again, the pain in that single word made Zane flinch. I know, he said softly. And I am sorry, I truly am. I was drunk and stupid, but that does not make it right. If you want me to leave and never come back, I will understand. I will find some other way to handle the debt. Grasha studied him for a long moment, her dark eyes searching his face for something. Zane did not know what she was looking for, but he met her gaze steadily, trying to show her that he meant what he said. Finally, she sighed. Come back tomorrow evening, she said. Bring flour, the good kind from the market, not the cheap stuff, and bring honey if you can afford it. If you are going to waste my time, you can at least make it worth something. Hope flickered in Zane's chest. So you will help me. I will consider not breaking your arms, Grasha said. That is all I am promising right now. Come at sunset tomorrow, do not be late and do not be drunk. I will not be late, Zane promised. And I will not be drunk. Thank you. Truly. Grasha just shook her head and closed the door, leaving Zane standing on her doorstep with the distinct feeling that he had just survived something dangerous. He walked back to town feeling lighter than he had all day, though he was not entirely sure why. She had not forgiven him. She had not even been kind to him, really. But she had not slammed the door in his face either. She had given him a chance, even if it was only the chance to fulfill his ridiculous bet. The next day, Zane worked extra hours helping repair a neighbor's fence in exchange for enough coin to buy proper flour and a small jar of honey. He spent more on those two items than he usually spent on food in a week, but if this was going to work, he needed to show Grasha that he was serious about keeping his word. He arrived at the mill just as the sun touched the horizon, the sky painted in shades of orange and purple. Grasha was outside, securing her chickens for the night. She looked up as he approached, and he held up the flour and honey like peace offerings. You came, she said, and he could not tell if she was surprised or not. I said I would. Grasha nodded slowly and gestured toward the mill. Come inside, then. Standing out here will just give the gossips more to talk about. Zane followed her into the mill, looking around with interest. The interior was clean and organized, with the massive millstones dominating the center of the space. A ladder led up to what he assumed was her living quarters on the second floor. The smell of grain and stone dust filled the air, but it was not unpleasant. It smelled like honest work. Grasha took the flour and honey from him, examining them with a critical eye. You bought the good flour, she said, and something in her voice had softened slightly. You said to. Most people do not listen. She set the items on a shelf and turned to face him, crossing her arms again. So how does this work? Do you recite poetry at me, bring me flowers, serenade me badly? Zane laughed despite himself. I have no idea, he admitted. I have never courted anyone before, orc or human. I am usually too busy working to think about such things. Grasha's eyebrows rose slightly. Never, you are what, 20-something years old? 24. And no, never. I am not exactly a prize catch. I am a farmhand who lives in a cottage that leaks when it rains hard, and I own 3 chickens that barely produce enough eggs for myself. At least you are honest about it, Grasha said. She moved to a small table and chairs set against one wall and sat down, gesturing for him to do the same. I suppose if we are going to do this charade, we should establish some rules. Zane sat across from her, relieved that she was willing to be practical about this. Rules sound good. First, you do not touch me without permission, Grasha said firmly. No grabbing my hand, no surprising embraces, nothing. If your friends ask, you can lie about it, but here in reality you keep your hands to yourself." "Agreed," Zane said immediately. "I would not have done that anyway." "Second, you do not talk about me in the tavern. I do not care what your friends say or ask. You do not share details about our conversations or my life. This is private, even if it is fake. I can do that. Third, when the month is over, you walk away and we both forget this happened. You do not come back. You do not tell people we are friends. You go back to your life and let me go back to mine." That rule should have been the easiest to agree to, but something in Zane hesitated. He pushed the feeling aside. "Understood," he said. Grasha nodded, seeming satisfied. "Good. Now, since you are here and I am not sending you away, you might as well tell me about yourself. If anyone asks, I will need to know basic information to make this look convincing." So Zane told her. He talked about his work on various farms around Millbrook, the seasonal labor that kept him fed but never wealthy. He told her about his small cottage and his chickens, which he had named breakfast, lunch, and dinner in a fit of dark humor. He talked about growing up in Millbrook, the son of a farmer who had died when Zane was 16, leaving him to fend for himself. Grasha listened without interrupting, her expression neutral but attentive. When he finished, she nodded slowly. "So you are poor, alone, and stuck in a town where nothing ever changes," she summarized. "Why stay?" Zane had never really thought about it before. "Where else would I go?" he asked. "This is my home. I know the people, I know the land. Starting over somewhere else seems harder than just staying put. Even when staying put means staying poor and alone, even then." Zane hesitated, then asked, "What about you? Why do you stay here when everyone treats you like you do not belong?" Grasha's expression hardened. "Who says I have anywhere else to go? I just meant." "I know what you meant." She stood abruptly, moving to the window and staring out at the darkening sky. "I came here 5 years ago. I needed work, and the old miller was desperate enough for help that he did not care what I was. He taught me the trade, and when he died 2 years ago, he left the mill to me. This is my home now, even if no one wants me here." There was pain in her voice, buried deep but unmistakable. Zane wanted to say something comforting, but he did not know what words would not sound hollow. "I am sorry," he said finally. "For what it is worth, I think it is good you stayed. The mill would have fallen apart without someone to run it." Grasha glanced at him over her shoulder. "That is probably the nicest thing anyone in Millbrook has said to me in years. That is depressing." "Yes, it is." She turned away from the window and sat back down. "It is getting late. You should go before people start wondering what we are doing in here." Zane stood, recognizing a dismissal when he heard one. "Same time tomorrow." Grasha hesitated, then nodded. "Bring vegetables if you can." "I am running low." "I will see what I can do." He left the mill feeling oddly unsettled. The evening had not gone badly, exactly, but talking to Grasha had made him uncomfortably aware of how isolated she was. 5 years in Millbrook, and he was apparently one of the first people to have a real conversation with her. The thought sat heavy in his stomach as he walked home. Over the next week, Zane fell into a pattern. He worked during the day, sometimes managing to trade his labor for items he could bring to Grasha. Vegetables from the gardens he tended, a wheel of cheese from a farmer whose fence he repaired, a loaf of bread from the baker who needed help moving sacks of grain. Each evening he walked to the mill at sunset. Each evening, Grasha let him in and they sat at her table and talked. Slowly, carefully, she began to open up. He learned that she had been born in an orc clan to the north, but had left when she was 17. She did not explain why she left, and Zane did not push. He learned that she loved working with her hands, that there was something satisfying about the simple process of turning grain into flour. He learned that she could read, which surprised him, and that she had a small collection of books that she had traded for over the years. "Most people think orcs are too stupid to read," she said one evening, running her finger along the spines of her books. "They are always surprised when I prove otherwise." "That is their ignorance, not your problem," Zane said. Grasha smiled slightly, the first real smile he had seen from her. It softened her features, made her look younger. "You say that like it is simple. Is it not?" "No." She pulled a book from the shelf and handed it to him. It was a collection of folk tales, the pages worn from repeated reading. "People's ignorance becomes my problem when they refuse to do business with me, when they cross the street to avoid me, when they tell their children I am a monster who will eat them if they misbehave." Zane looked at the book in his hands, guilt churning in his gut. He had never crossed the street to avoid Grasha, but he had never gone out of his way to be kind to her either. He had seen the way people treated her and done nothing. "I should have said something," he said quietly. "Before all this, I should have defended you." "Why?" Grasha asked. "You did not know me. I did not need to know you to know that people were being cruel for no reason." She sat down beside him, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. "You are here now," she said. "That is more than most people would do, bet or no bet." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, and Zane found himself acutely aware of her presence. The way she moved, efficient and graceful despite her size. The way she tilted her head when she was thinking. The small scar on her left hand that she had gotten, she told him, from a millstone accident when she was first learning the trade. He was starting to like her, he realized. Not in the way the bet required, or at least not only in that way. He liked talking to her. He liked the dry humor that crept into her voice when she was comfortable. He liked that she did not pretend to be anything other than what she was. It was dangerous, this liking. Because in 3 more weeks, he was supposed to walk away and never come back. The second week brought complications in the form of Marcus, who cornered Zane at the tavern. "So," Marcus asked with a knowing grin, "how goes the courting? Has she fallen madly in love with you yet?" Zane kept his expression neutral. "We are talking, getting to know each other." "These things take time." "Talking," Marcus repeated skeptically. "That is all. You are not even trying to kiss her." "I am trying to be respectful," Zane said. "You want me to court her, I am courting her. That means building trust, not just throwing myself at her." Thomas joined them, ale in hand. "The whole town is talking about it, you know. Half of them think you have lost your mind, the other half are taking bets on how long before she kills you." "She is not going to kill me," Zane said with more confidence than he felt. "She is just a person trying to live her life. Why is that so hard for everyone to understand?" Marcus and Thomas exchanged glances. "Easy there," Marcus said. "You are not actually falling for her, are you? Because that would be hilarious and also really sad." Zane forced a laugh. "No, I am just saying she is not the monster everyone makes her out to be. She has been nothing but reasonable about this whole thing." "If you say so," Thomas said, though he did not sound convinced. "Just remember, 1 more month and you are done. Do not do anything stupid like catch feelings." Too late, Zane thought but did not say. That evening he arrived at the mill to find Grasha in a dark mood. She let him in without a word and immediately went to her millstones, checking them over with sharp, aggressive movements. "What is wrong?" Zane asked. "Nothing." "That is clearly not true." Grasha spun to face him, her eyes flashing. "Fine, you want to know. Someone came by today, a farmer from town, someone whose grain I have milled before. He said he would not be needing my services anymore. Said his wife was uncomfortable with him doing business with an orc." Zane's hands clenched into fists. "Who was it? Does it matter? It is always someone. Every time I think maybe things are getting better, maybe people are starting to accept me, something like this happens. She turned back to the millstones. And now everyone is talking about you courting me, which just makes things worse. They probably think I cast some kind of spell on you, or that you are playing a cruel joke. I would never, I know, Grasha said, cutting him off. You have been nothing but honest and kind, but that does not change how other people see this. To them, we are a joke, the drunk human and the orc freak. Zane crossed the space between them, stopping just short of touching her. You are not a freak, he said firmly. And anyone who says otherwise is a coward and a fool, Grasha laughed bitterly. Pretty words, true words. Zane hesitated, then made a decision. What if we stopped hiding? She turned to look at him, confusion clear on her face. What? We have been meeting here every evening in private, so people do not talk. But they are talking anyway. What if we went into town together? What if I walked with you to the market, had a meal with you at the tavern, showed everyone that I am not ashamed to be seen with you? That would just make you a target too, Grasha said. I do not care, you should. Maybe, Zane acknowledged, but I am tired of being a coward. I let people treat you badly for years without saying a word. Let me try to make up for it now. Grasha stared at him for a long moment, something vulnerable and hopeful flickering in her eyes. Why? She asked softly. The bet does not require you to risk your reputation. You could just keep visiting me here and call it done. Because I am starting to care about you, Zane thought. Because the idea of walking away in 2 weeks makes my chest ache. Because you deserve better than being treated like a monster. Because it is the right thing to do, he said instead. Grasha was quiet for so long that Zane thought she might refuse. Then she nodded slowly. All right, she said. Tomorrow is market day. If you really want to do this, meet me here in the morning and we will go together. Zane smiled. I will be here. He left the mill with his heart pounding and the uncomfortable realization that this had stopped being about the bet somewhere along the way. He was not sure exactly when it had happened, but he knew with certainty that he genuinely wanted to spend time with Grasha. He wanted to know her better. He wanted to make her smile. He was, despite Thomas's warning, catching feelings. Market day in Millbrook was always busy, with farmers and craftspeople setting up stalls in the town square to sell their goods. Zane arrived at the mill just after dawn to find Grasha already waiting outside, dressed in a clean tunic and pants, her hair braided neatly. Ready? She asked, and he could hear the nervousness under her casual tone. Ready. They walked into town together, and Zane was hyper-aware of the stares that followed them. Conversation stopped mid-sentence as they passed. People openly gawked. A few mothers pulled their children closer, as if Grasha might suddenly attack. Zane wanted to shout at all of them, to demand they see Grasha as a person instead of a monster. But he knew that would not help. Instead, he stayed close to her side, keeping his expression pleasant and relaxed, as if there was nothing unusual about the two of them walking together. They stopped at a vegetable stall, and the farmer behind it looked distinctly uncomfortable. "Can I help you?" he asked, directing the question to Zane and pointedly ignoring Grasha. "My friend here needs carrots and potatoes," Zane said, emphasizing the word friend. "What do you have fresh?" The farmer swallowed hard but began showing them his produce. Grasha examined the vegetables with a critical eye, finally selecting what she wanted. She paid with her own coin, meeting the farmer's eyes steadily until he looked away. They continued through the market like that, stopping at various stalls, with Zane making it clear through his presence and his words that he was there with Grasha by choice. It was not easy. The stares and whispers followed them everywhere. But Grasha kept her head high, and Zane made sure to stay visible at her side. They were looking at fabric at one stall when a voice cut through the market noise. "Zane Keller, have you lost your mind?" Zane turned to see Martin Keller, a distant cousin, striding toward them with anger written across his face. Martin was a respected member of the community, a man with land and influence, and he looked disgusted. "Martin," Zane said calmly. "Good morning." "Do not good morning me," Martin snapped. "What do you think you are doing, parading around with that creature like she is people?" Grasha stiffened beside him, but before she could speak, Zane stepped forward. "That creature has a name, Grasha, and she is more decent than half the people in this town." "She is an orc," Martin hissed. "They are animals. Violent, savage animals. Our grandparents fought wars against her kind. And yet here she is, running a mill and minding her own business," Zane said. "She has never hurt anyone here. She has never caused trouble. But people like you have decided she is a monster based solely on what she is, not who she is." A crowd was gathering now, people drawn by the confrontation. Zane could feel their eyes on him, judging, measuring. His heart pounded, but he did not back down. "You are making a mistake," Martin said. "You are bringing shame on our family name." "The only shame I feel is that it took me this long to stand up for what is right," Zane said. "Grasha is my friend. If you or anyone else has a problem with that, that is your burden to carry, not mine." Martin's face turned red. "You will regret this." "Maybe," Zane said, "but at least I will be able to look at myself in the mirror." Martin turned and stalked away, and the crowd slowly dispersed, muttering among themselves. Zane turned to Grasha, expecting to see gratitude or relief. Instead, she looked angry. "We need to talk," she said tightly. "Now." She walked away from the market, and Zane hurried to follow her. She did not stop until they were well outside town, on the path back to the mill. Then she whirled to face him. "What were you thinking?" she demanded. Zane blinked, confused. "I was defending you." "I did not ask you to defend me," Grasha said. "I did not ask you to make yourself a target. Do you understand what you just did? You publicly aligned yourself with an orc in front of half the town. Martin is right. You will face consequences for that." "I do not care about consequences." "Well, you should." Grasha's voice cracked slightly. "In 2 weeks you are going to walk away and go back to your life. But those consequences will follow you. People will treat you differently. They might refuse to hire you. They might make your life miserable." "And for what? To win a bet?" "This is not about the bet anymore," Zane said, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. "This has not been about the bet for a while now. I defended you because I care about you, because I am tired of watching people treat you like garbage when you have done nothing to deserve it." Grasha stared at him, her expression unreadable. "You care about me," she repeated flatly. "Yes. Because of our arrangement. Because we have been spending time together." "Yes. No, I do not know." Zane ran a hand through his hair, frustrated with his inability to articulate what he was feeling. "All I know is that the idea of walking away in 2 weeks and never seeing you again makes me miserable. So yes, I care about you, maybe more than I should." The silence stretched between them, heavy and charged. Grasha's expression cycled through several emotions too quickly for Zane to identify. Finally, she shook her head. "You do not know what you are saying," she said quietly. "You are confusing proximity with feelings. We have spent time together, we have had pleasant conversations, and now you think you care about me. But you do not really know me, Zane. You do not know what it means to care about someone like me." "Then let me learn," Zane said desperately. "Let me keep seeing you after the month is up. Let this be real." "It cannot be real," Grasha said, and there was pain in her voice now. "You are human. I am an orc. That means something, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. It means we will always face judgment and hatred." It means any future we tried to build would be built on sand. I do not believe that. You should. Grasha turned away from him, her shoulders tense. Go home, Zane. Think about what you are saying. Think about what you would be giving up for someone you have known for only 2 weeks. And then, if you still feel the same, we can talk. She walked away toward the mill, leaving Zane standing alone on the path with his heart in his throat. He did go home, but not to think. He knew what he felt, even if Grasha did not believe him. The question was how to prove it to her. He spent the rest of the day working, but his mind was elsewhere. He thought about Grasha's words, about the consequences she had warned him about. She was right that people would treat him differently. He had already seen it in Martin's eyes, the disgust and disappointment. If he continued down this path, if he made his feelings for Grasha public and permanent, he would face that disgust every day. But the alternative was walking away from someone who made him laugh, who challenged him, who had somehow become important to him in the span of 2 weeks. The alternative was going back to his quiet, lonely life, and pretending he had never spent those evenings at the mill learning who Grasha really was. That seemed like the greater loss. By the time evening came, Zane had made his decision. He walked to the mill with purpose, arriving just as the sun began to set. Grasha was outside, tending to her garden, and she looked up as he approached. "You came back," she said. "I told you I would. I told you to think." "I did." Zane stopped at the edge of her garden, giving her space. "I thought about everything you said. The consequences, the judgment, the difficulties we would face. I thought about all of it, and my answer is the same. I want to keep seeing you. I want this to be real." Grasha stood slowly, brushing dirt from her hands. "You have known me for 2 weeks. I know. And I know that is not long enough to claim I am in love with you or that I know everything about you, but it is long enough to know that I want more time. It is long enough to know that you make me happy in a way nothing else has in a long time." "Zane, let me finish," he said gently. "I am not asking you to make any promises. I am not asking you to say you feel the same way. I am just asking for a chance. Let me keep visiting you after the bet is over. Let us see where this goes without the pressure of a deadline or a contract. Just 2 people spending time together because they want to." Grasha's expression softened, and for a moment Zane thought she might agree. Then she shook her head. "You do not understand what you are asking. So help me understand." She crossed her arms, her body language defensive. "You think this is just about facing judgment from your community. But it is more than that. If we tried to make this real, if people thought we were actually together, it would not just be uncomfortable. It would be dangerous." "Dangerous how?" "There are people who think orcs should not be allowed to live among humans at all," Grasha said. "People who would see a relationship between us as an abomination that needs to be stopped. The old miller, the one who taught me the trade. He was found beaten half to death once because someone saw him being kind to me. He recovered, but he was never quite the same." Zane felt ice settle in his stomach. "Someone beat him for being kind to you. They claimed he was collaborating with monsters. They said he was a traitor to humanity." Grasha's voice was steady, but her eyes were haunted. "He still left me the mill when he died, still treated me like family, but I have never forgotten what it cost him." "That is horrible," Zane said, "but you cannot let fear of what might happen stop you from living your life." "It is not fear, it is reality," Grasha said. "And it is not just about me. If we were together, you would face that violence too. Could you live with that? Could you really be happy always looking over your shoulder, always wondering if today is the day someone decides to make an example of you?" Zane thought about it honestly. Could he live like that? It sounded terrifying. But the alternative, losing Grasha before he even had a real chance with her, seemed worse. "I would rather face danger with you than safety alone," he said quietly. Grasha closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, they were wet. You say that now, but you have not lived it. You do not know what you are agreeing to. Then show me, Zane said. He took a step closer, still giving her space to retreat if she wanted. You think I will run the moment things get difficult. Prove it. Let me keep coming around. Let me see what your life is really like. If I cannot handle it if I run, then you will know you were right. But if I stay, if I prove that I am serious, then maybe you can believe that this is real. Grasha studied him for a long moment, and Zane could see her warring with herself. Finally, she sighed. You are stubborn. Yes, and foolish, probably. And you are going to regret this. Let me be the judge of that, she laughed, the sound wet and shaky. All right, she said. All right. You want to see what my life is really like? Fine. Come back tomorrow, same time, but do not say I did not warn you. I will be here, Zane promised. He left the mill feeling like he had won something important, even if he was not entirely sure what came next. The next evening, Zane arrived to find Grasha waiting outside with a pack slung over her shoulder. Come on, she said. If you want to understand my life, we are starting with where I came from. She led him away from the mill, following the creek upstream into the forest. They walked in silence for nearly an hour, the trees growing thicker around them. Just when Zane was starting to wonder where they were going, Grasha stopped. There, she said, pointing. Zane looked and saw what at first appeared to be a pile of rubble. As his eyes adjusted, he realized it was the remains of a small cabin. The walls collapsed and the roof caved in. Nature had begun to reclaim it, with vines and moss covering the rotting wood. What is this? Zane asked. My first home after I left my clan, Grasha said quietly. I built it myself, or tried to. I was 17 and had no idea what I was doing. It fell apart within a year. She walked closer to the ruins and Zane followed. Why did you leave your clan? He asked. Grasha was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was careful and controlled. Because I did not fit. My clan values strength above all else. Warriors, hunters, people who could fight and intimidate. I was never interested in that. I wanted to build things, create things. I spent my time learning carpentry from a human prisoner we had taken, rather than training with weapons. My clan saw that as weakness. That is not weakness, Zane said. They thought it was. When I was 17, they arranged a marriage for me to a warrior from another clan. He was brutal, violent, everything I did not want. I refused, which brought shame on my family, so I left. She kicked at a piece of rotted wood. I thought if I could make it among humans, I could prove that my way of living had value, that I did not need to be a warrior to matter. You did prove that, Zane said. You run a mill. You built a life. I built a life where I am tolerated at best and hated at worst, Grasha said. Where I spend most of my time alone because no one wants to be my friend. Where the biggest thing to happen to me in years is a human fulfilling a drunken bet. She turned to look at him. This is what you are signing up for, Zane. Isolation, loneliness, being seen as other always. Zane moved to stand beside her, looking at the ruined cabin. You said you learned carpentry from a human prisoner. Yes. What happened to him? He was ransomed back to his people eventually. But before he left, he told me something I have never forgotten. He said that the bravest thing a person can do is choose to be kind in a world that punishes kindness. He said that building things is harder than destroying them, but infinitely more valuable. He was right. Grasha smiled sadly. Maybe, but knowing something is valuable does not make it any easier. They stood together in the fading light, surrounded by the ruins of Grasha's first attempt at independence. Zane thought about everything she had given up, everything she had survived to get to where she was now. It put his own life into perspective. Thank you for showing me this, he said quietly. I wanted you to understand, Grasha said. This is what my life has been. Trying to build something and watching it fall apart, trying to fit in and being rejected. If you are with me, that becomes your life too. Or maybe together we build something that does not fall apart, Zane said. Maybe two people are stronger than one. Grasha looked at him, and in her eyes he saw hope warring with fear. You really believe that? I want to try. She reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away, and took his hand. Her skin was warm, her grip firm but gentle. Then we try, she said. But slowly, carefully, I need to know you are sure. I am sure, Zane said, squeezing her hand, but I will prove it to you as many times as you need. They walked back to the mill hand in hand, and something had shifted between them. The pretense of the bet was gone, replaced by something more fragile and more real. The next 2 weeks were a study in contrasts. During the day, Zane faced increasing hostility from the townspeople. Word of his confrontation with Martin had spread, and people were divided on whether he was brave or foolish. Some admired him for standing up for Grasha. Most thought he had lost his mind. He lost work because of it. Farmers who had hired him regularly suddenly had no need for his services. The tavern keeper started serving him smaller portions for the same price. Children pointed and whispered when he walked by, but in the evenings, when he went to the mill, none of that mattered. Grasha opened her door to him with a smile that grew warmer each day. They cooked meals together in her small kitchen. They sat and talked for hours, sharing stories and dreams and fears. She taught him how the millstones worked, and he helped her repair a section of fence that had started to rot. It was domestic and comfortable, and Zane found himself happier than he had been in years. They did not kiss. They did not even talk explicitly about their feelings, but the affection between them grew steadily, expressed in small gestures. The way Grasha made sure to cook his favorite foods. The way Zane always brought her something small when he visited, even if it was just wildflowers from the roadside. The way they sat closer together each evening until their shoulders touched. 3 weeks after the bet had started, Marcus cornered Zane again. "All right, you win," Marcus said, sliding a single gold coin across the table. "You did it. You courted the orc for 3 weeks, which is more than any of us thought you could manage." Zane looked at the coin. It seemed insignificant now, barely worth the trouble it had caused. "The bet was for a month," he said. "Close enough," Marcus said. "Take the coin, admit this was all ridiculous, and we can all move on." "No," Zane said. Marcus blinked. "No, the bet was for a month. I am seeing it through." He pushed the coin back across the table. "Besides, I am not ready to stop." "Stop what? Pretending to court her?" "Zane, everyone knows this started as a joke. You do not have to keep up the act." "It is not an act," Zane said quietly. "Not anymore. I care about her, Marcus, really care about her. So I am going to keep seeing her after the month is up, bet or no bet." Marcus stared at him like he had grown a second head. "You are serious?" "Yes. You actually have feelings for the orc." "Her name is Grasha," Zane said, his voice hardening. "And yes, I have feelings for her. She is kind, intelligent, and stronger than anyone I have ever met. She has been nothing but patient with me, even when I did not deserve it. So yes, I care about her." "This is insane," Marcus muttered. "You are throwing away your reputation, your livelihood, for a monster." Zane stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "She is not a monster, and my reputation is not worth much if it is built on cowardice and cruelty. Keep your gold, Marcus. I do not need it." He walked out of the tavern, his heart pounding. Behind him, he could hear Marcus calling his name, but he did not turn back. He was done with that part of his life, done pretending that he cared what small-minded people thought. He went straight to the mill, arriving earlier than usual. Grasha was surprised to see him, looking up from where she was organizing sacks of grain. "You are early," she said. "Is everything all right?" I told Marcus I did not want his gold, Zane said. I told him I was going to keep seeing you after the month was up because I care about you. Grasha went very still. You told him that, yes. Everyone in that tavern heard you, probably, so now the whole town will know. Good, Zane said. Let them know. I am tired of hiding how I feel. I am tired of pretending this is just about a bet. He moved closer to her. I care about you, Grasha. I think I am falling in love with you, and I want everyone to know it. Grasha's eyes were wide, her expression a mixture of shock and something that might have been joy. You are falling in love with me, she repeated. Yes. You barely know me. I know enough. I know that you make me laugh. I know that you are brave and stubborn and kind, even when the world gives you every reason not to be. I know that when I am with you, I feel like I am exactly where I am supposed to be. He took her hands in his. I know it has only been 3 weeks. I know that is not long enough to be certain of anything, but I am certain that I want more time with you. I am certain that whatever we are building here is worth fighting for. Grasha's eyes filled with tears, and she squeezed his hands tightly. You are an idiot, she said, but her voice was warm, probably. You are going to regret this. I really do not think I will, she laughed, the sound choked with emotion. I am falling for you too, she admitted. I have been trying not to because I knew it would hurt when you left. But you keep staying and you keep surprising me, and I cannot help it anymore. Zane felt like his heart might burst. So we are doing this. We are making this real. We are making this real, Grasha confirmed. Then she leaned down and kissed him. It was gentle and tentative, her tusks brushing against his face as their lips met. Zane wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her closer, and the kiss deepened. She tasted like honey and hope, and Zane had never felt anything so right in his life. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. Grasha rested her forehead against his, her eyes closed. What do we do now? She asked. We figure it out together, Zane said. One day at a time. They spent the rest of the evening talking about what came next. They agreed that Zane would officially move into the mill, since he was spending most of his time there anyway. They talked about how to handle the inevitable backlash from the town, agreeing to stay calm and not engage with provocation unless absolutely necessary. They talked about the future, about dreams and possibilities that had seemed impossible just a few weeks ago. It was late when Zane finally prepared to leave, reluctant to step away from Grasha's warmth. I should go, he said. I will come back in the morning to start moving my things. Stay, Grasha said quietly. Stay tonight. I do not want you to leave. Zane's heart raced. Are you sure? I am sure. So he stayed. They climbed the ladder to her living quarters, a cozy space with a large bed and a window that looked out over the forest. They lay down together, fully clothed, and Grasha curled against his side. Zane wrapped his arms around her, marveling at how perfectly she fit against him despite their size difference. Thank you, Grasha whispered into the darkness. For what? For being brave enough to see me. Really see me, not just what I am, but who I am. Zane kissed the top of her head. Thank you for giving me a chance, even after I showed up at your door with the stupidest reason imaginable. She laughed softly. It was pretty stupid. The stupidest. They fell asleep like that, tangled together, and for the first time in longer than Zane could remember, he felt truly at peace. The backlash, when it came, was worse than Zane had anticipated. It started small. More dirty looks, more whispered conversations that stopped when he approached. But it escalated quickly. Someone threw a rock through the window of his cottage. Someone else left a dead crow nailed to his door, a symbol of bad luck and curse. Grasha's mill was vandalized, with crude insults painted across the door. They cleaned it off together, working in grim silence, but it happened again 2 days later, and then again. "We should report this to the town guard," Zane said after the third incident. "And tell them what?" Grasha asked bitterly. "That someone vandalized the orc's property." "They will not care, Zane. They might even be the ones doing it." She was probably right, but it made Zane's blood boil. They were hurting Grasha just for existing, just for daring to find happiness with someone. It was unjust and cruel, and he did not know how to fix it. Things came to a head one market day. Zane and Grasha had gone into town together to buy supplies, and they were browsing a stall when a group of young men approached them. Zane recognized them as troublemakers, sons of wealthy families who had nothing better to do than make other people's lives difficult. "Keller," one of them said, a man named David. "We need to talk." "I have nothing to say to you," Zane replied, keeping his body between David and Grasha. "That is too bad, because we have plenty to say to you." David looked at Grasha with undisguised disgust. "You are a disgrace to humanity, taking up with a monster. Your family would be ashamed." "My family is none of your business." "It is everyone's business when you start trying to normalize this perversion," another man said. "You think we are going to stand by and watch you pretend this thing is acceptable?" "She is not a thing," Zane said, his temper fraying. "She is a person, and what we do is none of your concern." "It is our concern when you start influencing others," David said. "When you start making people think that humans and orcs can mix. That is dangerous thinking, Keller." "The only dangerous thing here is your ignorance," Grasha said coldly. She stepped forward, drawing herself up to her full height. "I have lived here for 5 years. I have never hurt anyone. I have never caused trouble. But you and people like you cannot stand the idea that I might be allowed to be happy. That says more about you than it does about me." David's face twisted with rage. "How dare you speak to me, monster?" He lunged forward, and Zane moved on instinct, putting himself between David and Grasha. He managed to deflect the first blow, but David's friends joined in immediately. Zane felt a fist connect with his jaw, then another to his ribs. He went down hard, the world spinning. Then Grasha was there, and the fight was over almost before it began. She grabbed 2 of the men by their shirts and threw them aside like they weighed nothing. She put herself over Zane, her body a shield, and growled. It was a primal sound, something from deep in her chest, and it froze everyone in place. David and his friends took one look at Grasha, at the fury in her eyes, and scrambled backwards. "Touch him again, and I will break every bone in your body," Grasha said, her voice deadly calm. "I do not care what consequences I face. If you hurt him, I will hurt you worse." The marketplace had gone silent, everyone watching the confrontation. David looked like he wanted to say something, but one of his friends grabbed his arm and pulled him away. They retreated, shooting dark looks over their shoulders. Grasha knelt beside Zane, her hands gentle as she checked him over. "Are you all right? Can you stand?" "I am fine," Zane said, though his jaw throbbed and his ribs ached. "Just bruised." She helped him to his feet, and he became aware of all the eyes on them. Most of the townspeople looked uncomfortable, some sympathetic, some disapproving. But they were all watching, all judging. "Let us go home," Grasha said quietly. They walked back to the mill in silence, Grasha supporting most of Zane's weight. Once inside, she sat him down and began tending to his injuries with surprising gentleness. She cleaned the cut on his lip, pressed a cool cloth to the bruise forming on his jaw, and checked his ribs to make sure none were broken. "I am sorry," she said finally. Zane looked at her in surprise. "Why are you sorry? You saved me. I put you in danger in the first place. If you were not with me, they never would have attacked you." "That is not your fault," Zane said firmly. "You did nothing wrong. They attacked me because they are cowards who cannot stand the idea of us being happy together. Maybe this was a mistake," Grasha said softly. Maybe you should go back to your old life before this gets worse. No. Zane reached up and cupped her face, making her meet his eyes. I am not leaving you, not because of some bullies, not because things are difficult. I told you I was in this, and I meant it. You could have been seriously hurt, but I was not, because you protected me. He smiled despite the pain. We protect each other. That is how this works. Grasha's eyes filled with tears. I do not want you to get hurt because of me. And I do not want you to face this alone anymore, Zane said. We are in this together, Grasha, the good and the bad. That is what it means to love someone. She leaned down and kissed him carefully, mindful of his split lip. I love you, she whispered against his mouth. I was trying not to, but I love you. I love you too, Zane said. And nothing that happens is going to change that. They held each other as the sun set outside, and despite the pain and the fear and the uncertainty, Zane felt certain he had made the right choice. The assault in the marketplace had consequences, but not the ones Zane expected. Instead of emboldening their enemies, it seemed to have shamed some of the townspeople. A few days later, the baker stopped by the mill with a basket of bread. I wanted to apologize, she said, not quite meeting Grasha's eyes, for not speaking up, for letting them treat you that way. It was wrong. Grasha accepted the bread with surprise and cautious gratitude. Thank you. Over the following weeks, more people came, not many but enough to matter. A farmer brought vegetables. A seamstress brought fabric. A blacksmith brought nails and tools, saying gruffly that the mill looked like it needed repairs. They were small gestures, but they represented something important. Not everyone in Millbrook was cruel. Not everyone saw Grasha as a monster. There were still people who hated them, of course. David and his friends continued to make threats, and Zane and Grasha both learned to be careful when they went into town. But they also found allies, people who were willing to stand with them. Zane moved into the mill officially, and together they made it feel like a real home. They expanded the garden. They repaired and painted the exterior. They added personal touches, like curtains for the windows and a bench outside where they could sit in the evenings. Zane found work helping those who were willing to hire him despite his relationship with Grasha. It was not as much as he had before, but it was enough. And in the evenings, he came home to Grasha, to her warmth and her laughter and her love. 6 months after the bet that had started everything, Zane proposed. He did it simply, without fanfare. They were sitting outside in the evening, watching the sun set over the creek, when he pulled a ring from his pocket. It was not fancy, just a simple band of silver he had traded his labor for, but he had chosen it carefully. "Marry me," he said, holding it out to her. Grasha stared at the ring, then at him, her eyes wide. "What? Marry me?" Zane repeated. "I want to spend my life with you. I want to build a future together, face whatever comes together. I want to be your husband if you will have me." "Zane, we cannot get married," Grasha said, but there was longing in her voice. "The town will never accept it. The law might not even allow it." "I do not care about the town or the law," Zane said. "I care about you. If we cannot get married officially, we will do it our own way. We will make our own vows, create our own ceremony. But I want you to know that I am committed to you for the rest of my life. So please say yes." Grasha's eyes filled with tears and she laughed through them. "You are insane. Is that a yes?" "Yes," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "Yes, of course, yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger and she pulled him into a kiss that was full of joy and promise. They held their own ceremony a month later. On the first anniversary of the day, Zane had knocked on Grasha's door with his drunken bet. They did it at the mill, with a handful of people who had become their friends in attendance. There was no priest, no official documentation, but it did not matter. They spoke their vows to each other, promising love and loyalty and partnership, and they meant every word. Thomas, who had remained a cautious friend through everything, gave a toast. "To Zane and Grasha," he said, raising his cup, "who proved that sometimes the stupidest decisions lead to the best outcomes." Everyone laughed, and Zane pulled Grasha close, kissing her temple. "Best stupid decision I ever made," he murmured. "Same," Grasha agreed. Life was not easy after that. They still faced prejudice and hostility from parts of the community. But they also found support from unexpected places. Other people who had felt like outsiders, who had been quietly hoping for a world where differences were accepted rather than punished, reached out to them. Slowly, very slowly, things began to change in Millbrook. A year after their private ceremony, the town council officially recognized their union, a decision that shocked everyone. It was a small victory, but it meant something. It meant that they had fought for their right to love each other, and they had won. 2 years after that, Grasha gave birth to their first child, a daughter with green-tinged skin and her mother's dark eyes. They named her Hope, because that was what she represented. Hope for a future where human and orc children could grow up accepted and loved. 5 years after the bet, Zane stood outside the mill watching Grasha teach their daughter how to grind grain while their son, barely 2 years old, played in the garden. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant colors, and Zane felt a contentment so deep it was almost painful. Marcus had been right about one thing. The bet had been ridiculous, but it had also been the beginning of everything good in Zane's life. It had forced him to see past his own assumptions, to recognize that the barriers between people were often built on fear and ignorance rather than reality. Grasha looked up and caught him watching, and she smiled. That smile still made his heart skip, even after all these years. She said something to Hope, then walked over to join him, slipping her hand into his. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "How lucky I am," Zane said honestly. "How grateful I am that Drunken made that stupid bet," Grasha laughed. "I am grateful too, even though you showed up at my door smelling like ale and regret." "I still regret the ale," Zane said, "but I regret nothing else. Not even when David threw that rock through our window last month, not even then." He squeezed her hand. "This is worth all of it." "You are worth all of it." Grasha leaned down and kissed him, soft and sweet. "I love you, Zane Keller." "I love you too, Grasha Keller." They stood together as the sun set, their children playing nearby, their home solid behind them. The future was uncertain, and they would face challenges ahead. But they would face them together, the way they had faced everything since that first awkward evening at the mill. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.